Alright, hey everybody. Hey, I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Okay, so today, y'all, I want to do a video dedicated just to sharpening a chainsaw. I know there's a lot of you out there that sharpens your saws for firewood, some of you loggers, whatnot. Most of you loggers, y'all already know all about sharpening a chainsaw, so what you're going to learn today from me is nothing new to you. But what we're going to do, this chain is a chain that I've been using. It ain't been sharpened yet. It's still fairly sharp, but it needs a good tuning up, if you know what I mean. So what I'm gonna do is I've got, this is a double here, and it was actually a long log. It was longer than I needed for a double. It's got a 10-foot log from right here where the saw is back, and then there's a tie log from here out to almost to the end, and then we got to cut the very end of it off. Okay, so we're gonna make two cuts, but what I'm gonna do is we're gonna do it in two separate deals. I'm gonna demonstrate what it looks like with just a normal chain that's been used. It's not really sharp. I want you to see how it's gonna cut. And I'm gonna do it with one hand like this. We're gonna take the saw and I'm gonna just hold it with one hand because I want you to see what it looks like with the weight of the saw making the chain cut, okay? Now, versus what it looks like after we hand file it, okay? So let me get this thing fired up. And we're not going to cut all the way through it. We're just going to cut a little bit here and maybe a little bit on the end. And in that way, you know, you kind of get an idea of change and what it looks like. Okay, now like I said, it's just demonstration purposes. I just want you to see how the saw's going through the log. And it's still cutting pretty decent. I mean, you know, I could live with that. I wouldn't want to sit there and have to cut up a whole bunch of logs or do a bunch of felling with that chain. It's just not sharp enough. But it's good enough for what most people would do. Okay. So let's get this thing up here at the stump vise, and we're gonna go ahead and get this thing sharp. And I'll break it down for you a little bit, tell you a little bit about the chain, and explain to you some different kinds of teeth options that you would have as far as dirty wood versus like this wood would be considered dirty because it's got mud on it from where it's been drug and stuff like that. It's got dirt in it, but there's different kinds of teeth on these chains that will suit different scenarios of like dirty wood versus clean, you know, hard wood versus soft wood, you know, all that good mess. And we'll kind of chit chat while we sharpen this dude up. All right, so first thing we got to do is get this saw in this little stump vise, and there's a knob right here on it. I tried to make it where y'all could see it better out here in the sun. I had it under the edge of the barn here to keep me out of the rain when I was sharpening saws and whatnot, but oh well, we got a bunch of wind today and probably got some weather that's going to blow in a little bit later. But anyway, the first thing you want to do is get your saw up here and make sure your saw's good and flat on the stump, and then pick your bar up just a little, put a little bit of weight, and then tighten it down good. That's what I do. And what you have to remember throughout this whole video is this is the way I do it. You don't have to do it this way if you don't want to. However, you can watch the results when we first started versus in a little while whenever we get done sharpening this baby. You can look at the results and decide for yourself if it's the way you want to do it, and if you think that I know what I'm talking about. So these steel chains has got a yellow link in them. And let's see if we can find it. It's in here somewhere. There it is, right there. All right, I like to use that yellow link as like it kind of gives me an idea of where I'm at with my chain, because I want to start behind the yellow link and then work my way all the way around until I get back to this yellow link, and then I'll go file the other side. Okay. in efforts to keep the video from not getting too awful long, I'm going to show you sharpening a teeth going this direction, and then show you a teeth going this direction, maybe a couple of each, or 2 or 3, something like that, whatever it takes to kind of get the point across. And then we're going to move out of the teeth into the rakers, which are these things. Some people call them drags, some people call them guides. There's many names, and any name that you want to call it's fine with me. But we're going to discuss how the teeth cut, why the teeth cut, the importance of the rakers, and you know, how far down you need to go and all that kind of mess. We're going to cover all that in the video. But first I want to talk about different teeth and different chains. Okay, this is a skip chain, and I want to zoom the camera in where y'all can see. Okay, now this is what we call a skip chain, because you've got a right hand cutter here, and you've got a left hand cutter here, followed by a right hand cutter here. It's a skip chain because on a full comp chain, you would have a right hand cutter here, a left hand cutter here, a right hand cutter here, a left hand cutter here, and a right hand cutter here. So in other words, you would have twice as many teeth. Well, not twice as many, but you would have 2 more teeth right in here. You know, left and right hand cutters, if that makes sense. So with a skip chain, you don't have as many teeth, and it don't take as much power to pull it. You can run a longer bar, and also your wood chips. For instance, when this cutter here, when this right hand cutter here, when it rolls a chip out and it comes out of the back of it, it will come down and hang right here on this raker, or drag as some people call it, until it goes out the end of your bar, and then it will spit it out. Okay, when you have a full comp chain and there's a tooth right here, that chip only gets to go to right here, to right here, and it'll wad up on you. You'll get a lot of wood chips, you know, in between the chain and the wood that you're cutting, before it can clean out, before it gets out here to the end of the bar and actually spits it out. Okay, so a skip chain will actually, in some cases, will be a little bit better, just because it'll clean out and it handles different types of wood better. Softwood for sure, hardwood, you know, it just depends on the tree you're cutting. But skip tooth, like I said, you can run a longer bar with the same horsepower motor, and it'll clean your wood chips out a little bit more efficient and not let it bind up, because it'll, you know, you'll stack wood chips in here so much that it'll start binding on you a little, and it actually will hold the teeth off from cutting and won't let it cut as fast. Okay, so that's one thing about a skip tooth. Now you can also have what they call a semi-skip, which would be a right hand cutter here, a left hand cutter here, skip, skip, left hand, you know, right hand cutter. Instead of having, you know, where it's a tooth, skip, tooth, skip, tooth, skip, tooth, it'll be a tooth, tooth, skip, tooth, tooth, skip, tooth, tooth, skip. And you can make a semi-skip chain out of a regular chain, out of a full comp chain. And what you do is go in here and you mark these teeth. Every third tooth, you come in here and mark it with like a red paint pen. You mark this one, count 1, you know, 1, 2, 3, mark it, 1, 2, 3, mark it, 1, 2, 3, mark it. And then you take your grinder and go in there and cut them teeth off. And you've got your a semi-skip chain. And a semi-skip chain cuts pretty nice. It's kind of in between a skip tooth and a full comp. If you got a saw that's not quite got enough power, but you need to run a little bit longer bar, the semi-skip is pretty nice. You know, and like I say, you can make one pretty easy. It'd be easy for you to try at home. You know, if you wasn't sure about whether you want to go to a skip chain, you could make one pretty easy. All right, I'm gonna bring you in a little bit closer, and we're gonna talk about the anatomy of a sawtooth, because you got to understand how a tooth cuts and the angles and all that mess before we get started sharpening, because it won't make as much sense to you. So let me bring you in a little bit closer and we'll talk about that. Okay, so obviously, I mean, like here we got a left hand cutter, Here we've got a right hand cutter. I think everybody can make that out. Here's your drags or your depth gauge. Some people call them rakers. Again, it doesn't matter what you call them, just as long as you know what I'm talking about. And there's a line on this tooth right here on top. I don't know if y'all can make it out real good, but right up here there's a line. That line serves two functions. One, it's the angle at which your file needs to come across that tooth for a standard filed chain. And on a steel chain like this one, it's 30 degrees. That's going to get you kind of right in the middle. Now you can change it and you can go steeper like that, or you can come around and go shallower like that, depending on the type of wood that you're cutting. This part right here is called your top plate. All right. This part right here on the side, that's called your gullet. You know, where that round file, see how it fits in that tooth there? And like that. This little section here on the side, that's called your gullet or your side cutter. All right. Underneath that top plate, underneath here, there's an angle that it cuts that tooth at underneath here. And it's really the angle of the file. And by the way, this is let me make sure I'm telling y'all right. I believe it's a 13/64. Yes, this is a 13/64 file, and this is a 3/8 pitch chain, which is what most logging saws is going to have. Some of them's got a .404 pitch. More of your homeowner type chainsaws is going to be a .325 pitch. Okay, and a lot of that has to do with the size of the drive links and how far apart the rivets are in the drive links. It's just a little bit heavier chain as you step up in size. More powerful saws need a little bit heavier chain to keep from stretching it and all that good mess. But anyway, so there's a couple different angles that you need to know. Your first angle is going to be the one coming across, which matches this line on top. All right, your second angle is going to be that angle underneath the tooth right here on the top plate. You know, that angle that, you know, goes this way, okay, like this. And that has to do with the file. Everything that we're talking about has to do with this file. And a 13/64 file is going to get you somewhere around a 60-degree angle, down angle on your top plate. All right, you don't have any control over that. The size of the file is what dictates it because of it being round. All right, so you're going to get about a 60-degree angle on your top plate on the front. The last angle that I'm going to tell you about is your tilt angle, which is going to be this and or this. Or you can just go flat. You know, if you're going to tilt that way or tilt that way or just go flat across. What I do in the wintertime especially, I start out flat and then I tilt it down about 10 degrees towards the gullet. And what that's going to do is that's going to clean that gullet out just a little bit more. So we're going to start on this tooth right here, and I'm just going to file a little bit and let y'all see kind of how I do it. We're going to start out straight. All right, now I'm going to start pushing a little bit of down angle, about 10 degrees toward the gullet, because I want to clean that gullet out real good. All right, that's all she needs. All right, now we've got a good 60-degree angle underneath the top plate. We've got she's pretty close to 30. I like to shallow mine out a little. I don't like to steepen them. It'll make it cut faster and harder and more aggressive if you steepen it, but it'll also make a finer point, and you'll knock that point off if you hit something like a knot real hard or some dirt or something like that. You'll mess that point up, okay? And so we've got about a 30-degree, angle coming across. We've got about a 10-degree angle coming down. All right, and what that's going to do is create a bigger cutting surface on the side plate over here. And for frozen wood, that really helps you a whole lot. It helps you most of the time in most situations anyway, but it really helps you in frozen wood. All right, so we've got top plate angle, we've got the gullet angle, we've got the top plate angle coming across, we've got the top plate angle underneath the tooth, right up under the top plate, That 60-degree down angle, and again, that's controlled by the diameter of the file. Has nothing to do with your hands and how you hold the file. It's just strictly the diameter of the file. If you were to get a smaller file, it would make a steeper angle, or a shallower angle, I guess I should say. You would be like a 45 or 50 degree, which again would make the tooth sharper, but it would also cause it to get duller quicker. One thing I want to tell you about is the different kind of teeth that saw chains can have. This chain is what they call a full chisel chain. In other words, where that tooth is there, and I'm gonna put I've got a picture of semi-chisel and chisel. I'm gonna put it up here on the screen so y'all can see. But a full chisel comes to a point like this on the end of the tooth. It makes a real sharp point. A semi-chisel comes up and then it's got a rounded corner. It's kind of almost like a question mark, sort of. That semi-chisel is going to handle dirtier wood, you know, if it's rotten, if it's got junk in it, you know, rocks, stuff like that. Well, not so much rocks, but you get what I'm saying. Dirtier wood, it's going to handle that wood a lot better. And the reason why is because it's got a rounded corner instead of a very sharp pointed corner. Now, a full chisel like this, it's going to be more aggressive. It's going to cut faster. You're going to have a little bit more kickback tendencies from it than a semi-chisel would have. But this full chisel is going to dull a lot faster too. If you get in some sand or dirt, just sand blowing in the tree bark like on a fence row on the outside of the woods, if you get a lot of sand that's blowed in the trees, you know, over the years, just that sand that's embedded in that bark will dull a full chisel chain because it's easy to knock the point off. Remember, the steeper the angle you put on this thing, you know, this way. In other words, if you go past 30 degrees, say you go 35 or even 40 degrees, yeah, it's going to rip. But at the same time, as soon as you hit something with it, dirt and mess like that, it's going to dull a whole lot faster. If you put a shallower angle in it, it's not going to cut quite as aggressive and not pull on the saw as hard, but it's going to stay sharper longer. You're not going to come as near knocking that point off on the end. And that's what a semi-chisel chain does. It's got that rounded corner. There's not a whole lot of difference in the speed on the two chains. They cut pretty good, both of them do. In fact, I've cut with semi-chisels over the years, and if you're cutting real low stumps, like if you're cutting real high quality walnut or high quality white oak and you want to get that stump down right at the ground, a semi-chisel chain is the way to go. Because it ain't a matter if you're going to get it in the dirt, you're going to get it in the dirt. Getting it down that low, there's no way around it. And that semi-chisel just handles it better. Okay. So we've talked about the teeth, we talked about skip chains, full comp chains, semi-skip chains. We've talked about the different kind of teeth, full chisel, semi-chisel. So now we understand that. We've also talked about the different pitches of chain, 325. On the real smaller saws, they got like quarter inch pico. Then you'll go up to a .325 on most of you like homeowner mid-size, you know, 55 cc saws. Then when you jump up into your 60 cc saws, 65 cc saws and above, they're going to mostly have 3/8 pitch, which is what most logging saws are. When you get up into the real big logging saws and like harvester type chains on knuckle booms and stuff like that, then you're going to be getting into that .404 pitch, that big stuff. And that's the main thing, is because it's more horsepower pulling them chains, and if you don't have a thicker, heavier chain, you're going to stretch it a lot more with that higher horsepower saw head. So with that being said, let's get on down the road and start sharpening a few teeth. And we've already got this one pretty sharp, so I'm going to take my file and I'm going to pull it. Now I try to sharpen right over the top of my stump vise. I pull my tooth that I intend to sharpen right over the top of my stump vise, because if you get it out here, you see how that bar flexes? You want to get it right here over this stump vise. Now some people is good enough that they can set this saw on top of a stump and lay across the top of it and sit there and sharpen it. If you want to do it that way, that's fine. It don't matter how you do it, just as long as you have a good secured way of doing it to where you get the same results all the time. So now, I'm not counting the strokes. I hear this all the time from people saying, well, you gotta hit it 8 licks on this side and 8 licks on the other side. You gotta be the same. That's a lot of crap, y'all. There's nothing to that. It don't matter if this tooth over here on the right hand side is 1/8 of an inch shorter than the tooth on the left side. What matters is, and let me show you this, and we're going to get to this more here in a minute, but what matters more than how long the teeth are is whether or not you've got the rakers set right. This is a raker gauge. You put it on there, and that raker needs to be flush. See how it's got this little cutout? All right, that raker needs to be flush with that raker gauge. All right, on a skip tooth chain, you can take it below the gauge just a hair, but you don't want to do it too much because then your saw get real jumpy, and it starts to bind a little, and the teeth will be cutting too much. Because what this does, y'all, between this depth gauge here, or raker, or drag, or guide, or whatever you want to call it, there needs to be a 25 thousandths gap between the top of this raker gauge, or drag, and the top of this tooth. Because that determines how thick of a chip you're going to take. If you've got a 25 thousandths gap, which is what these standard gauges from steel is, you're going to take a 25 thousandths thick saw chip. So you're going to be bringing out good saw chips. Your saw is not going to jump up and bounce a lot, and be real chattery. You don't want it chattering. That's dangerous. It's hard on the tensioners on your saw, and it can also kick back a lot on you. I've heard people say, oh, just take the rakers down, 2 licks every time you sharpen it. You can't do it that way. Well, you can, but you're not going to get consistent results, and your saw at times is going to bind. It can cut crooked and all this mess because you'll get the teeth uneven. And what I mean by the teeth uneven is the raker gauge to the tooth. Raker gauge to the tooth. It don't matter that the right hand side is shorter than the left hand side. What does matter is that the right hand side depth gauge matches the left hand side depth gauge. If you're taking a 25 thousandth saw chip on the left side and a 25 thousandth saw chip on the right side, the wood don't care that how long the tooth is. It's not going to cut crooked if you're taking the same size saw chip. When it is going to cut crooked is when you're taking a 35 thousandth saw chip on the right side and a 25 thousandth saw chip on the left side. It's going to start cutting crooked and binding. All right, and we don't want to do that. So now that we've kind of got a little bit of background on these teeth and everything, you're going to see that I'm not going to worry about counting the strokes on these teeth. I don't care how many strokes it takes. What I do care is how many strokes it takes to get it sharp. I'm going to sit there and watch it, and you're going to see me get down here close to it. You'll see little jagged edges across your teeth. Sometimes it'll be shiny right on the end of that tooth. When you hit something like a rock or a nail or something like that, you got to get all that mess off. You got to bring it back down to where you go from a jagged edge on that tooth back down to a real clean, smooth, sharp tooth. And this takes a lot of practice. You take those file guides and throw them away. When you buy these kits, like from Steel and Husqvarna and stuff like that, and it's got that guide on it, just throw that thing in the trash because you don't need it. And the reason why you don't need it is because when you're sharpening that tooth, you need to look at the tooth. You need to be able to see the tooth and see what you're doing. You need to be able to see that line, so that line will give you an indication of the angle that you're at, but you also need to be able to see the tooth. And if you've got a guide sitting over the top of it, you can't see that tooth until you move it out of the way. Okay? Now what I do, I position myself here where I can make a good, good pushing stroke. And this takes practice. You just got to do it a while. I push my file through and then twist as I'm going. Every once in a while, you'll see me hit it on the chain like that to knock all them file shavings out. You got to keep your file clean as you're sharpening. So here we go. I start out flat, and then I start kind of putting a little bit of tilt in it toward the gullet. All right, clean my file out. That tooth is sharp. We're ready to go on to the next one. You can see the color change of the teeth and all that mess as you're going. Just keep right on filing until you got good, even results. Right at the end, put a little bit of down pressure on it and a little bit of tilt, because you got to get that gullet cleaned out, y'all. If you don't get that gullet clean, you're not going to cut. You've got a side cutter and you got a top cutter. Both sides have got to be sharp in order for this thing to cut. Start out flat. Once you've got everything cleaned up on your top plate, put a little bit of down angle tilt and start cleaning that gullet out. I don't know how many strokes I just put. Y'all could probably count them and tell me, but I don't know how many I put on there, and I don't care. Like I said, it doesn't matter. What matters is that here in a little bit, whenever we file these rakers, it matters that the raker matches the tooth. That's all that matters. All right, we got that one. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is keeping your tooth even as you come back. You know, as you sharpen that tooth, you're going to be working your way toward the back of this tooth, okay? And as you come to the back of it, you're going to get closer to that line. That line not only represents the angle at which you should cut that tooth, it also represents when you get to that line, that tooth is done. You just throw it away after you get that far back. Usually when you sharpen these chains and you get them about halfway down, they start really cutting nice, really nice. But you want to keep this as you sharpen and come back. You want to make sure that it stays level coming across the bottom of the tooth down here at where the chain starts. And don't worry about getting into the chain link. Whenever you max down on that thing and make sure that gullet's clean. Get on down into that link a little bit. You ain't gonna hurt it. Get on into that link a little bit and make that thing good and sharp. Clean that gullet out real good. All right, here we go. Let's get this one and then we'll swap to the other side. All right, she's good and sharp on the top plate. Now I'm gonna put a little 10 degrees down angle in it. That kind of finish her off. And on my last few strokes, I put a little bit of down pressure on my file to just make sure that I'm keeping that, close to them chain links. I want it to be level as I come back. You don't want to have, some people will have a ridge right in here. It'll have like a ski slope, some people call it. You don't want that. You want it to be straight back from start to finish, all the way to the back. And what that'll do is that'll make sure you got a clean gullet. All right, so now let's swap sides. Now, first thing I'm gonna do is pull my yellow mark back up here over the top of my stump vise. I'm gonna start with the tooth behind the yellow link, so that way I don't lose my place. Now, of course, you can look at the teeth and tell which ones has been sharpened and which ones ain't. But again, I just use that yellow link as a reference. And hey, if you're not using a steel chain, you're using Oregon or whatever, just get you a paint marker and mark one of the links and use that as your reference if you want to. Okay, so again, get right over the top of your stump vise. Start out flat. Let's see, we'll go this way. This might work a little better for me. Start out flat. Keep filing until you get that tooth good and sharp, so you get a good smooth edge. Once you get down toward the end, put a little bit of 10-degree tilt in it. Now you ain't got to put 10-degree tilt in it. You can cut it flat all the way across and it won't be a problem. Again, this time of the year for sure, in the cold part of the year when the wood starts freezing, I put just a little bit of a down angle in it. And what that does, it creates a little deeper throat on your side cutter. And it just allows it to cut just a little bit better. All right, I followed my angle on the top plate. Everything looks pretty good on that tooth. Now we're gonna move on to the next one. Again, I'm putting a little bit of twisting motion in my file as I come across. Got the top plate looking good. Now we're gonna put a little down angle in it, a little bit of pressure on the file. Got to get that gullet good and clean. All right, we'll do one more. All right, that looks pretty good. Again, we're keeping it level across the bottom of the tooth link. We don't have no ski slope or no ridge. You know, it looks pretty level all the way coming back. Another thing that you need to look at is get down here and look at it from the side. And on this tooth right here, when you look at it from the side, it ought to make a C shape. And the reason for that is because the C shape is half of your file. If you don't have that C shape in that tooth, it ain't gonna cut real good. It's not gonna pull hard. Okay, let's sharpen this one, and then I'm gonna cut the video and just finish sharpening all the teeth, and then we're gonna do the rakers. I'll take you all along for that. Got the top plate straight. Now I'm putting a little bit of down angle in it, just a little bit, not much, and a little bit of pressure, and that finish the tooth out. Sometimes there'll be, you know, metal hanging on it where you sharpen it. You can take your file and knock that off, or you can wait till you cut with it and it'll knock it off. It don't matter. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop video here for now. I'm gonna finish sharpening all the teeth, and then I'm gonna bring y'all back and show y'all how I do the rakers. Okay guys, so I've got done with the teeth as far as sharpening the saw teeth. All right, the left hand and right hand cutters, they're all good and sharp. Top plate, side plate, you know, made sure that we didn't get that ski slope. You know, we kept the teeth good and level. Again, the size of your file dictates the angle underneath the tooth right here on the top plate. It's about a 60-degree angle or so with a 13/64 file. Now you can get a .325 file like this one is, and you will shallow that angle out a little bit, make it like a 45 to a 50-degree angle. And if you do that, it's going to sure enough rip and cut, but you're also going to knock the edge off of it pretty quick. First time you hit something hard with it, it's going to just disintegrate that the teeth, the cutting edge on it, and it's not going to cut worth a darn. It's not going to stay sharp for you. Again, if you have too steep of an angle, in the summertime when the sap's up, you can run a little bit steeper angle because the wood will be a little bit softer. So you can take and run a little bit steeper angle, like a 35-degree, and it'll cut sure enough good. But again, if you hit something, it's going to dull it faster. Why? Because you're making a sharper point on the end right here on this full chisel. The sharper the point, the harder it's going to grab. It's going to be real grabby. It's going to bite hard and pull hard, and it's going to cut fast. But in doing so, you're also going to dull it faster. I'm more of a conservative when it comes to this type deal. I'm more of a 25-degree angle type guy. And again, I put a little bit of 10-degree tilt angle in my tooth. What that does is creates a little deeper, more fuller gullet. You got a little bit longer edge on that side plate, which, you know, is a more gradual cut. And when you get into this drier, the sap's down in the winter, and plus it freezes. The trees can freeze on, you know, real cold days, and it makes it extremely difficult to cut. So if you'll put that 10-degree down tilt on it and really get that gullet cleaned out good, you got to get that gullet cleaned out or it's not going to cut. I mean, that's just the way it is. I don't care. There's nowhere around it. Okay, but now we need to work on the rakers, the drags. That's going to be the next thing. And again, on this skip tooth deal, on a skip tooth chain, you can afford to run the rakers just a hair bit lower than the gauge itself. Now, if you got a full comp chain and you're kind of at maximum capacity with your saw head, in other words, you ain't got a whole lot of extra power, you want to run that thing exactly, you want to put it up here like this, and you want to file across it just like that, and get it exactly flush with this gauge. Husqvarna makes one that's a double-sided. You got one for hardwood and one for softwood. Your softwood chip is a little bigger than your hardwood chip. In other words, you'll have 25 thousandths on the hardwood side and like 30 to 35 thousandths on the softwood side. Some people like a saw that pulls hard. It'll take a big bite of wood and you don't have to pull on the saw as hard, but you also can't push on the saw as hard. You can't pull on it at all, because if you do, it'll foul up, get stuck and bind the chain, and it's just no good. So take your rakers down flush. On this skip tooth, take them down flush and maybe just a little bit lower. This tooth right here is flush. Now I'm gonna go 2 strokes below it. And what you gotta remember on filing these things I personally go in the direction of the tooth on the rakers. I file my rakers the same direction as I file my teeth. So my left-hand cutters, I'm filing from this side, I file them that way. Then I get on this side and file the right-hand cutters this way. All right? It just seems to be easier for me. Now, if you want to file all of them from one side, hey, do what you need to do. No skin off my back and everybody's happy. Okay, so this one here is just slightly below my gauge, just slightly. One thing that I want to tell you about on these rakers, you can get the rakers right up here on top. In other words, you go file them and you'll get it down where it needs to be. But what'll happen is right here on the front of the raker, right up here at the very front, it'll roll a little burr up from where you filed it. You need to knock that burr off. So what I do, let me show you on the next two, because I done this one. What I do, put your gauge up there and check it. All right, that one's pretty good. We'll skip that one. That one is real good. We'll definitely skip that one. That one's pretty good. I'll find one in a minute and I'll show you what I'm talking about. That one's pretty good. That one's good. And another thing, you won't have to file these rakers every time you file the teeth. It just depends on how far back you take the teeth. That one's good. That one's good. And I'm checking every single one of them. You know, I'm not just, you know what I'm saying? Checking all of them because I want the same result across the board. Yeah, that one's good. Yeah, and that one's good. Now we're back to our yellow link, and that one's good. Okay, my point is, and I'll just show you right here on this one because this is the one we done. When you roll that burr up on it out here on the end of your raker, you got to knock that burr off. So what I do, if I think 2 strokes is going to be enough to get it down low enough where I want it to be, I'll hit it my 2 strokes, 1, 2, and on my last one, I'll come in for a 3rd stroke, but I won't actually file the top of it. I'll roll it around. See what I'm saying? I'll take my file like this, and I'll roll it. I'll roll it off the front of that raker. And what that's going to do, that's going to take your raker and make it round on the front, and you're going to have a smooth edge. So whenever that raker comes in contact with the tree, with the wood, you don't have a burr there holding you off, because that burr can keep your tooth from cutting it off. It don't take much to get a 25,000th burr, you know what I'm saying? So make sure you clean them burrs off. Now we may find some on this side that needs it, okay? Here's our yellow link. We'll start right here. That one there is about flush, so we're gonna take it down one stroke. All right, 1, and then we're gonna round it off on the front, like that. That looks pretty good. That one's good. That one's good. That one's good. Are y'all noticing something here? I'm not needing to take my rakers down. They're already good. But I'm checking every one of them. That one needs about 2 strokes. All right. We'll take the front of it off. And just be careful whenever you when you knock it down. Make sure you get that burr off the front. Because like I say, that burr can hold you off and make it not cut. On a full comp chain, in other words, that's got all of its teeth, just put it flush with this right here and leave it. Don't take it down no lower, because it'll hurt you in the end. It'll actually make your saw cut slower. Let's see, that in there might need just a little bit. All right. Okay, we're good. But what I'm getting at is, y'all, I'm checking every single tooth on this chain, all the way around. And what that's going to do is I'm going to get a consistent saw chip on both sides. Consistency. You're going to get a 25 to like 30 thousandths chip. Probably closer to 30 thousandths since I'm taking it just a little bit lower than my gauge. But when I say lower, y'all, I mean I'm just barely taking it lower. And learning how to file good is something you're just going to have to do. It takes practice. You're not going to get good at it the first time. You're going to really jack up a few chains, to be honest with you. All right, you got to get down there where you can see it too. Down there needs just a little bit more. And them little old light strokes are just getting the burr off. All right, that looks pretty good. And that one's good. But my point is, y'all, you don't have to count the strokes. You know, all that's, I mean, you can count the strokes if you want to, but you ain't gonna get a super sharp chain that'll cut really good. You need to get it, you need to sharpen it until it's sharp. How many ever strokes it takes to get that tooth sharp is how many strokes it needs. If you just do 6 or 8 strokes per side, you're not gonna get it real sharp. And your chain's not gonna cut to maximum capacity. Sharpen that tooth until she's sharp. Get you a file with a good handle on it. Get rid of that guard, throw that thing in the trash. Follow the line on your tooth. Again, in the summertime, you can go a little bit steeper. In the wintertime, you're gonna go a little bit shallower. It's all about the point. If the point is really, really sharp, it's gonna really rip and really cut. However, it's gonna dull as soon as you hit anything with it. If you make it a little bit more blunt, it ain't gonna cut quite as hard, it ain't gonna pull as hard, but it's gonna stay sharper longer and you're gonna get a little bit more consistency in your chain. All right, so we're done with the filing process. I don't think there's anything else I need to cover. I believe we covered most everything. I've had a lot of questions on this and how I sharpen my saws, and I sharpen a lot of saws for local people here, and everybody always wants to know how in the world you sharpen this thing. It's, you know, it cuts better than it did when the chain was new. Well, now I'm showing you. And when you can take your hand and lay your hand, you got to be careful doing this now because you'll cut yourself, I'm telling you. When you can take your hand and lay your hand up here on it, it feels like a briar bush or cat claws grabbing you. That baby's sharp. She's ready to go cut some wood. Okay, so let's go back over here to the log pile. We're going to start cutting up some of these doubles. I'll let y'all see how it works. Okay, now again, I'm going to hold it with one hand because I want y'all to see the comparison that we did compared to previously. You know, this log here is probably like a 12, 14 inch log, so we're only going to be using about half the bar, okay? But I don't want to rear on it and put no pressure on it because that would kind of be cheating. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can make one cut faster if you put pressure on it. I want y'all to see what it cuts with no pressure because if you're going to cut all day long, in other words, if you're going to go cut timber and it's going to take you most of the day, y'all, you don't want to be pulling on no saw. I mean, that takes extra energy and you ain't going to make it. You know, you ain't going to make it through your day. Most any good timber cutter or logger or somebody that cuts a lot of timber, they're going to tell you keep a sharp saw. That's the most important thing about owning a chainsaw is keeping a sharp chain. These performance saws now that we have nowadays, they can pull a dull chain to a point that it'll just pierce smoke it. And what you'll wind up doing is you'll get that bearing over here, this crankshaft bearing on this side where you pull it, or where your sprocket is, you'll get that bearing so hot that seal will come apart and your bearing will fail and it'll go through your motor and blow your motor up. I know because I done built a bunch of them. I built a bunch of saws back for a lot of people. A steel MS 461 is known for that because they're known for a lot of torque. They'll pull a dull chain all day long, but they'll also smoke a set of bearings and seals and you'll blow it up. So keep a sharp chain and your saws will love you a lot longer and last a lot longer. Now I'm gonna put my earplugs in, and I gotta show y'all my earplug holder. Y'all think this is cool. I got me an old medicine bottle, and that's what I put my earplugs in. Keeps them clean, stick them in my pocket, and I'm in good shape. That's just a little redneck hack. Y'all don't have to do it, but I like doing it that way. All right, so let's get this thing going. She's a little bit cold natured. By the way, if you want me to show you how to safely start a saw, this is how you do it. Lock your chain brake, put it between your legs like that. You can also lock your chain brake like that. Now, it ought to be pretty obvious to you that it did cut faster. I mean, that should be something real obvious, but there's something else I want to show you too. If you take them rakers down too much, your bar will get, or your chain will get real grabby, and it'll bite hard, and it'll also make the tip of that thing jump up and kick back a lot harder. Okay, but I want to show you that with the rakers filed properly, the way they ought to be, you won't get as much of that, and I'm going to show you right here. My point is, what I'm getting at is, if you file these rakers like they're supposed to be, and you don't get them down too low, it don't jump as much. It won't be as dangerous, and it'll cut smoother. You won't get that chattering in it. And the harder the wood you cut, the worse it'll be. You won't get all that chattering and jumping and binding and carrying on. It just don't cut that good. Okay, so some of you that takes your rakers down real low, hey, if you like that, and that's what suits you and it makes it easier for you to cut, keep doing it and enjoy life, okay? But for the rest of you that are trying to learn and you want a good smooth cutting chain that'll cut every single time, do it this way that I've showed you and you'll have good results. Hey, look, I want to thank every one of you for hanging out today. I appreciate you stopping by and giving me your time. It means a lot to me. I appreciate all the comments on the videos, all the lovely comments. You guys are awesome. And you know, as always, y'all, if you've enjoyed this video and you like it, hey, it's free. It don't cost a thing. The way I make money off of YouTube is by views and watch hours. So it will help me if you guys will hit the like button and share the video, and also subscribe. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And you know, in our future videos, I do saw videos every now and then, and we do timber cutting videos. So if you like this kind of stuff, hit that subscribe button. You know, on our channel, we do an array of different things. It's centered around mule logging. Logging is what we do. This is my specialty. It's what I'm here for. But we do a lot of different things. You know, we do maintenance on the trucks, skid steer maintenance, golly, blacksmith work, gardening, farming with the mules. You know, a little bit of everything. I try to include and make it very diverse, so that way I don't bore y'all. But I hope you've enjoyed this video today and learned something from it that'll be helpful to you. And as always, if you're watching this video, I'm going to be praying for you. Each and every one of you. I love you. I appreciate you. Appreciate you being here. And I'm going to put my email up here on the screen. If you need me, you want to holler at me, that'll be good. I'll be glad to talk to you. And we'll see you next time. Y'all take care of yourself.